When Greg slid the severance folder across the desk, he did not even have the courtesy to meet my gaze. He was a glossy corporate hire who smelled like cheap cologne and unearned confidence, treating my 25 years of dedication like a line item that needed to be erased. He leaned back with a smug smile and told me that the company needed people who were agile, adding that if I was unhappy, the exit was right behind me. I looked over at the team photo sitting on my desk, remembering the endless nights I had sacrificed to build our system from scratch. Without throwing a fit or shedding a single tear, I closed my laptop, slid the folder under my arm, and walked out. The office was dead silent as I passed rows of colleagues who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. Nobody said a word, and that kind of silence carries a heavy weight that drags down decades of loyalty and trust in an instant. I did not go straight home. Instead, I took a quiet booth at a nearby diner to clear my head and process what had just happened. For over 2 decades, I had been the silent engine behind our core product, writing the underlying code that turned a tiny startup into a multi-million-dollar giant. Because I had lived and breathed that system, every critical process had my footprint on it, whether management realized it or not. When I finally reached my house, the quiet air was a welcome relief from the corporate noise. I set the termination paperwork on the dining table and went straight to a dusty filing cabinet in the back of my closet. Buried beneath old tax documents was a thick envelope containing the original provisional patent filings from years ago. Back when the company was in chaotic transitions, a brilliant legal advisor had warned me to hold the core patent in my own name until permanent contracts were finalized. Because upper management was always playing musical chairs, those final transfer papers were never executed, leaving me as the sole legal owner of our core framework. Even better, a specific clause buried deep in the original licensing agreement stated that if I was ever fired without cause, all intellectual property rights would immediately revert to me within 24 hours. Greg thought he was clearing out useless baggage, but he had actually triggered a ticking bomb under his own feet. I called my old legal counsel to confirm the paperwork, and his dry laugh over the phone told me everything I needed to know. The moment I was handed that severance folder, the clock started ticking on the company's legal right to use their main platform. With a few deliberate keystrokes on the official patent portal, I formally processed the reversion notice. By the next morning, the updated public records officially reflected that I was the sole owner of the algorithm powering their entire business model. The shiny executive team was likely sitting in their morning strategy session, completely unaware that the ground beneath them had just vanished. I knew they were preparing for a massive public demonstration of their next-generation platform in just a few days. Every line of code they planned to showcase was built directly on top of my intellectual property, making every single commit a direct legal violation. Instead of rushing to confront them, I calmly drafted a new set of licensing terms while enjoying my morning coffee. Word from the office eventually reached me through a former colleague who called to ask a casual question about transferring my old files. She mentioned that the new product launch was being moved up and casually noted how strange it felt to run the updates without me. I simply wished her good luck and ended the call, letting them slowly figure out the mess they had created for themselves. The legal department had received the official ownership updates, but because executives rarely pay attention to routine notices, the warning sat unread. Greg was busy bragging in the break room about how smoothly the transition had gone, completely oblivious to the fact that his flagship product was now legally compromised. The breaking point arrived faster than expected when a sharp junior legal assistant noticed my name listed as the exclusive patent holder during a routine compliance check. He immediately escalated the issue to senior management, but Greg brushed it off as a simple database glitch and insisted on moving forward with the live presentation. He refused to let a minor administrative detail delay his big moment, showing a complete lack of understanding regarding how intellectual property law actually works. The product team continued staging the software, unaware that every test run was accumulating massive financial liabilities for the firm. They were putting the finishing touches on a product they no longer had any right to operate. When the founder of the company got wind of the patent update, he personally called my line in a state of absolute panic. He asked if there had been some kind of massive misunderstanding regarding the ownership records, but I kept my tone entirely neutral and laid out the facts. I reminded him that the formal transfer was never finalized and that my sudden termination automatically triggered the return of my rights. He realized the gravity of the mistake instantly, knowing that his entire company was on the hook for major damages if they proceeded with the launch. He hung up the phone without another word and rushed straight into the corporate headquarters to confront the executive team. Eyewitnesses later told me that the founder marched straight into the legal suite, waving the updated patent sheet in front of the head attorney. When the legal team confirmed that I indeed owned the core algorithm, the room went completely cold. The founder then walked straight into Greg's office and shut down his arrogant excuses in front of several staff members. Greg attempted to claim that it was just a minor bump in the road, but the founder made it clear that they were currently using code without permission. The entire launch event was now dangling by a thread, and the leadership team was finally realizing how severe their mistake really was. The afternoon of the public showcase was a complete disaster for the corporate leadership. The grand auditorium was packed with investors, major clients, and industry press who had gathered to see the new software in action. Greg took the stage with his usual performative swagger, delivering a polished speech about innovation and market dominance before pointing to the giant screen behind him. Just as he was about to initiate the live system demo, the chief legal officer quietly walked onto the stage and whispered directly into his ear. The microphone caught just enough of the exchange for the front row to realize that something was critically wrong with the presentation. Greg tried to laugh it off as a temporary technical delay, but the awkward silence in the auditorium grew heavier by the second. Behind the scenes, legal warned him that demonstrating the system on live stream would constitute intentional infringement, carrying severe financial penalties. Meanwhile, several sharp investors in the audience looked up the public patent registry on their phones and noticed my name listed as the current owner. Whispers quickly spread through the rows of seats as attendees realized that the company did not even own the technology they were trying to sell. The live demonstration was abruptly cancelled, leaving the audience stunned and the executive team thoroughly humiliated. Following the public failure, an emergency board meeting was convened to assess the damage and figure out a path forward. The room was filled with anxious board members who demanded to know how the core technology of a massive company had slipped out of their hands. The head attorney laid out the timeline clearly, explaining that my unexpected termination had automatically returned all proprietary rights back to my name. Greg tried to defend his actions by claiming I was uncooperative, but the board was not interested in his excuses anymore. They realized that in his rush to push me out, he had destroyed the foundational value of the entire enterprise. When the board asked how they could fix the situation, the legal team made it clear that they could not write a single line of code without my explicit permission. The founder pointed out that this was not something they could fix with a standard payout, as the power had shifted completely into my hands. Greg sat in total silence as the reality of his blunder settled over the entire room. The company was facing massive delays, angry investors, and potential lawsuits unless they met whatever demands I decided to make. They had treated me as easily replaceable, only to find out that they could not function for a single day without my work. By the time my phone started blowing up with dozens of urgent calls from executives, I was calmly enjoying the morning quiet from my porch. I did not bother answering their frantic calls, choosing instead to send a single concise email outlining my conditions for licensing the code back to them. I demanded a substantial retroactive royalty fee, an official seat on the board, and the immediate correction of my employment record. Within 3 hours, the board unanimously agreed to every single condition without attempting to negotiate. They sent over the finalized legal contracts, eager to secure the rights to the system before their business collapsed completely. I signed the new licensing agreement on my own terms, turning a spiteful termination into absolute control over my life's work. The executives who had tried to erase my contributions were now forced to answer to me at every major decision point. I did not need to shout, cause a scene, or post angry rants online to prove my value to the organization. The legal reality of the situation spoke for itself, serving as an unmistakable reminder that you should always know who owns the foundation before you try to demolish the house.